The sun had barely started to peek over the distant mountains, casting a soft golden glow across the desert landscape. The silence of the early morning was only broken by the soft chirping of birds and the gentle rustling of the wind. In the small frontier town, nestled in the vast desert of Arizona, life began to stir. It was still early, but the world around Ayanna was already awake. She stepped outside her small, humble cabin, breathing in the cool desert air as she prepared herself for the day. Ayanna was no ordinary woman. She was of Apache descent, and her striking beauty often caught the eye of anyone who happened to pass by. But what made her stand out wasn't just her beauty. It was the quiet strength she carried within. She had lived on the ranch for years, serving the wealthy rancher, Mr. Thompson, and his family. Ayanna had never been one for many words. She was simple, content with her daily tasks and careful not to stir up any trouble. Her hands, though delicate, were skilled, used to cooking, cleaning, and caring for the family's needs. But life on the ranch had never been easy for her. She wasn't born to serve. She was born to roam the wide-open lands, to feel the rush of the wind against her face as she ran with her people. But her circumstances had changed. She had come to this place as a young girl after her family had fallen on hard times. With nowhere else to go, she had found herself here at the mercy of the Thompsons. They were kind enough to take her in, but Ayanna always felt like a servant, never fully part of the family. She did her job well, but she knew she would never be seen as one of them. The Thompsons lived in a large, grand house on the edge of the ranch. It was the kind of house you would expect to see in the middle of a city, not tucked away in the vast desert. Ayanna's quarters were small, separate from the main house, but she didn't mind. She preferred the solitude. The mornings were always her favorite time before the chaos of the day began. Before the ranch hands came in for breakfast, before the horses needed tending, before the children came running with their endless requests, it was her quiet moment to herself, a time to breathe and prepare for the day. That morning, like every other, she began her routine. She started by washing her face at the small wooden basin by her window, the cold water waking her up fully as she splashed it over her face. She braided her long, dark hair tightly, pulling it back to keep it out of her way. Ayanna had always loved her hair, but it was always better when it was neat and out of the way. There was something calming about the rhythm of brushing it, combing it through with a steady hand. It was a small luxury she allowed herself, even if she had little else. Once dressed, Ayanna made her way to the main house. The morning air was still crisp, and the sound of her footsteps on the dirt path was the only noise around her. As she approached the house, she noticed the ranch house's large front door was wide open, just like it always was in the early mornings. She stepped inside, the familiar smell of fresh bread and roasting coffee filling the air. She could hear the sound of Mrs. Thompson, the rancher's wife, moving about in the kitchen. Ayanna went to the kitchen, where she was greeted with a friendly smile. Mrs. Thompson, an older woman with kind eyes, always made Ayanna feel welcome, even though she could never escape the feeling that she was just another servant. "Good morning, Ayanna," Mrs. Thompson said warmly. "I've already set the table for breakfast. Will you be starting with the dishes today?" "Yes, ma'am," Ayanna replied softly, her voice as calm as always. She moved over to the counter where a stack of dirty dishes awaited her. It was a routine task, one she could do without thinking. As she began washing the dishes, the sound of running water and the soft clink of dishes was the only noise in the otherwise silent house. The children were still asleep, and Mr. Thompson, the rancher, had gone out to inspect the herds. Ayanna's hands worked mechanically, rinsing each plate and placing it gently in the drying rack. She had done this every day for years, her movements graceful and precise. But today was different. Something felt off. It wasn't the house or the tasks or the routine. It was something she couldn't quite put her finger on. Ayanna paused for a moment, her fingers still in the soapy water, and glanced over at the living room. The large couch was pushed against the far wall, and a heavy blanket had been tossed carelessly over it. It was a small thing, but it caught her attention. She hadn't remembered seeing it there the night before. It wasn't unusual for the family to leave things in disarray. Mrs. Thompson often left blankets draped over furniture, and the children sometimes tossed things around carelessly. But this blanket, there was something about the way it lay on the couch, slightly crumpled, that made Ayanna feel uneasy. She couldn't explain why, but it seemed wrong. Her eyes lingered on the blanket for a moment longer than usual. The longer she stared at it, the more she felt the need to investigate. But she hesitated. She wasn't the kind of person to get involved in things that weren't her business. She had learned early on to stay out of the way, to do her job quietly and without fuss. It wasn't her place to question the family or their things. Yet the blanket stirred something inside of her, a curiosity she couldn't ignore. Slowly, almost without thinking, she walked over to the couch. She stood there for a moment, staring at it, her heart beating just a little faster than usual. She was sure she heard something. Was that a movement? A shift beneath the fabric? Ayanna stood there, unsure of what to do next. She could ignore it, go back to her work and pretend she hadn't noticed anything. Or she could lift the blanket and see what was underneath. Her hand trembled as she reached out, and before she could stop herself, she tugged at the edge of the blanket. As she lifted it, her eyes widened. Beneath it there was someone huddled there. She could barely make it out, but the figure shifted just slightly. Ayanna froze. Her mind raced. What was this? Who was it? She had to know, but something deep inside her told her to leave it alone. This wasn't a simple mess to clean up, it was something more. As she stood there staring at the blanket, her heart thudded in her chest. She wasn't sure what was under there, but she knew that nothing was ever going to be the same again. Ayanna stood frozen, her heart racing as she stared at the blanket that had been disturbed. The figure beneath it shifted again, moving ever so slightly, and Ayanna's breath caught in her throat. For a moment, all she could hear was the pounding of her own heartbeat. What had she uncovered? What was hidden underneath this simple, everyday covering? Her hands, which had been steady just moments before, now trembled as she reached down to pull the blanket back farther. Each movement was slow, almost as if she feared the thing beneath might leap out at her or vanish if she wasn't careful. Her mind raced with 1,000 questions. Had the family hidden something away from her? Was it an object, a person, or something she couldn't even imagine? As the blanket came off a little more, Ayanna could see it clearly now. There was something small, wrapped tightly in fabric and fur, resting there. It was not moving much, but Ayanna could feel its warmth, almost like the heat from a living being. It wasn't a person, but it was also too strange to be just a forgotten object. Her eyes widened. The bundle was not something she could recognize. It looked like it had been carefully wrapped, as if someone had placed it there intentionally, hiding it from view. The furs were soft but old, the kind of thing that might belong to an ancestor. Perhaps even something passed down through generations. But why would it be here? And why now after all these years? Ayanna knelt down slowly, keeping her eyes locked on the bundle. She reached out carefully, her fingers brushing against the warm fabric. It felt like nothing she had ever touched before, soft yet firm, as though it had been held together by more than just cloth and fur. She hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do next. Should she disturb it any further? Should she leave it be, as it had been hidden for so long? But her curiosity wouldn't allow her to step back now. Something told her that this was no ordinary object. It was important. Important in a way she couldn't yet understand. Ayanna carefully pulled the rest of the blanket back, revealing the bundle in full. As it came into view, her breath caught in her throat. The bundle contained an object wrapped tightly in cloth, but what really caught her attention was the faint shimmer of something metallic beneath the fur. She could just make out the outline of something shiny, something old, something with the kind of weight that only ancient items carried. It was a relic, of that much Ayanna was sure. The kind of thing that spoke of long-lost history, a piece of something bigger than her world. Ayanna felt a chill crawl down her spine. What had she found? She had heard rumors over the years, whispers about things hidden on the ranch, things that should not be disturbed. But never in her wildest dreams did she think it would be something like this. She had always felt that there was something strange about the place, something off in the air, but she never dared to question it. The ranch was beautiful, grand even, but it held an air of mystery, an air that made Ayanna feel like she was always just on the edge of something bigger. She sat back, unsure of how to proceed. She glanced around nervously, as if expecting someone to walk in at any moment. The house was quiet, and Mrs. Thompson had been in the kitchen earlier, but Ayanna hadn't heard her move for some time now. She thought about calling out to her, telling her what she had found, but something held her back. A feeling deep in her gut told her that this wasn't something she should share just yet, not until she understood it herself. Slowly, Ayanna reached out again, this time lifting the edge of the bundle with both hands. She didn't want to ruin it or damage whatever was inside. Her hands were careful, delicate, as she unwrapped the cloth. As the fabric parted, the object inside became clearer, and Ayana's breath caught in her chest. It was a small, intricately carved box, no bigger than the size of her palm. The box was made of what looked like old wood, but it shimmered with a strange, almost metallic gleam. The carvings on its surface were intricate and detailed. Though Ayana couldn't make out the designs clearly, there were symbols she didn't recognize, curved lines, spirals, and what appeared to be a series of small animals and figures that seemed to tell a story, but one that was lost to her. Ayana felt a strange pull, almost as though the box was calling to her, beckoning her to uncover its secrets. She couldn't explain it, but her fingers moved to open it. The box resisted at first, as though it had been sealed shut for years, but Ayana was persistent. With a soft click, the box popped open, revealing what lay inside. Her eyes widened. Inside was a small, beautifully crafted stone. It was a deep shade of red, almost glowing in the dim light of the living room. The stone was smooth and polished, and it fit perfectly in the palm of her hand. It felt warm to the touch, as though it had been heated by the sun itself. But it wasn't just the stone that caught Ayana's attention. It was the energy that seemed to radiate from it. She could feel it in her fingertips, a pulse, a hum that seemed to match her own heartbeat. Ayana was mesmerized. She had no idea what this stone was or why it felt so familiar, so powerful. It was unlike anything she had ever encountered. She held it for a moment longer, staring at it, feeling the strange connection between herself and the stone. But then the reality of what she had just done hit her. She had uncovered something important, something that was clearly meant to be kept hidden. She quickly closed the box and wrapped it back in the cloth, her hands shaking. Her mind was racing. What should she do with it? Should she tell someone? Should she leave it here tucked away under the blanket where it had been for so long? Or should she keep it for herself, as though it were meant for her alone? Before she could make any decisions, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway, breaking through the silence. Ayana froze, her heart leaping into her throat. She quickly stood, hiding the box behind her back, just as Mrs. Thompson appeared at the doorway, looking at her with a curious expression. "Ayana, is everything all right?" Mrs. Thompson asked, her voice gentle but filled with an unspoken question. Ayana took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. She forced a smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. She had to act normal, had to hide the unease she was feeling. "Yes, ma'am," she said quietly. "Just cleaning up. Nothing to worry about." Mrs. Thompson gave her a puzzled look, but said nothing more, turning to head back into the kitchen. Ayana stood there for a moment longer, the weight of the box still heavy in her hands. She hadn't told Mrs. Thompson what she had found, and something told her that she couldn't. Not yet. As she turned back to the couch, her eyes lingered on the blanket one last time. Something had changed. Whatever this box was, it had a purpose. And Ayana was starting to realize that the secrets of this ranch and the past it held were about to change everything. Ayana's hands trembled as she carefully placed the small, intricate box back beneath the blanket. The warmth of the stone still lingered on her fingertips, its presence like an unspoken promise. She wasn't sure what had just happened, but she knew one thing for certain. Her life had just changed. The object she had uncovered, something so ancient and powerful, could not simply be ignored. She paused for a moment, the silence of the house surrounding her. The soft ticking of the clock in the corner was the only sound in the room. Ayana could hear her breath, slow and steady, as if she were trying to calm herself. It was strange. How could something so small, so seemingly insignificant, make her feel like her entire world had shifted? After a few moments, she stood up slowly, glancing around the room. The ranch house felt different now. The walls seemed to be closing in on her, the air thick with unspoken words. She had always felt like an outsider here, but now it felt as though she had uncovered a secret, a truth that had been buried for so long. It was a truth she couldn't ignore, no matter how much she wanted to. The house was still quiet, but Ayana knew she couldn't keep the secret to herself. The question was, who could she trust with this information? Mrs. Thompson? She was kind and had always treated Ayana with respect, but would she understand what Ayana had found? Would she even believe it? Ayana's thoughts were interrupted as the soft sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway. She froze, her heart racing. She quickly glanced at the door, her eyes widening in panic. It was Mrs. Thompson. She had returned. Without thinking, Ayana grabbed the blanket covering the box again. She moved quickly to the other side of the room, trying to act natural. Mrs. Thompson entered, her eyes immediately searching the room. "Ayana, is everything all right?" Mrs. Thompson's voice was filled with concern. There was something in her gaze, a flicker of suspicion, as if she had sensed that something was off. Ayana's mind raced. She couldn't let Mrs. Thompson know what she had found, not yet. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to appear calm. "Yes, everything is fine," Ayana replied softly, a small smile on her lips. "I was just cleaning up." Mrs. Thompson seemed to relax a little, though her eyes still lingered on Ayana with an intensity that made her uneasy. "Well, if you're finished here, there's something I need to talk to you about," she said. Ayana nodded, though a sense of unease settled in her stomach. She had to get away from the house, away from the pressure of the secret she had just uncovered, but there was no escaping it now. Mrs. Thompson's presence seemed to fill the room, and Ayana felt like the walls were closing in on her. "What is it?" Ayana asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Mrs. Thompson stepped closer, lowering her voice. "It's about the ranch," she said quietly. "I don't know how to say this, but I think it's time you knew." Ayana's heart skipped a beat. What was she about to hear? She had always known there was something strange about the place, but she had never questioned it. It had always felt like there was a story hidden beneath the surface, something that no one spoke of. Ayana had often wondered if it had to do with the ranch's history. The way things seemed to go wrong sometimes, the odd occurrences that no one could explain. Mrs. Thompson looked down for a moment, collecting her thoughts before looking Ayana straight in the eyes. "The ranch. It's been in our family for generations. But there's more to it than just land and cattle. There's something hidden here, something we've kept buried, something that belongs to our past, something that should never be disturbed." Ayana's pulse quickened. It was as if Mrs. Thompson was speaking directly to her, as if she knew exactly what Ayana had just uncovered. She tried to stay calm, to hide the nervousness that was bubbling inside her, but she couldn't. She had to know more. "What do you mean?" Ayana asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mrs. Thompson took a deep breath. "There's an artifact, something that was passed down from the Apache people. A sacred object, one that holds great power. We've kept it hidden away from prying eyes because there's a curse attached to it. If it's disturbed, if it's opened or used, bad things will happen. I don't know all the details, but I know enough to be afraid." Ayana felt as if the ground had been pulled out from under her. The box, the stone, was that what Mrs. Thompson was talking about? She felt the weight of the object she had uncovered pressing down on her, as though the curse Mrs. Thompson spoke of was already beginning to unfold around her. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" Ayana's voice was shaky now, her hands clenched into fists. "Why is it here? Why didn't you warn me?" Mrs. Thompson's face softened with guilt. "I didn't want to scare you. We've kept it hidden for so long, and I thought it was better to leave it alone. But now that you've found it, there's no turning back. The curse has already begun." Ayana's mind was spinning. She had thought she was simply cleaning up, going through her normal routine, but now it seemed as though she had stumbled upon something far more dangerous. She didn't know if she believed in curses or not, but the weight of the stone, the strange energy she had felt, it felt real. And she couldn't ignore it. "What do we do now?" Ayana asked, her voice low. Mrs. Thompson looked at her for a long moment before shaking her head. "I don't know. But we have to be careful. I thought it was just a story, a myth, but now I'm not so sure. The ranch has changed since you found it. I can feel it too. There's something in the air, something heavy." Ayana's mind was racing. She had found the object, but she had no idea what to do with it. The world around her seemed to be shifting, and she didn't know how to stop it. The room felt suffocating, the air thick with tension. She had uncovered a secret that was far bigger than her, and now she was trapped in it. She couldn't go back to the way things were. The mystery of the ranch, of the stone, was only just beginning to unfold. Mrs. Thompson stepped back, her expression one of deep concern. "Be careful, Ayana. Don't let it control you. If you're going to deal with this, you'll need to be strong. You'll need to trust yourself." Ayana nodded slowly, her heart heavy with the weight of what she had learned. The stone, the curse, the family's secret. It was all too much for one person to bear. But she had no choice. She had to face it, whatever it was, and figure out how to end the curse before it consumed them all. As Mrs. Thompson left the room, Ayana stood there, her thoughts swirling in a storm of confusion and fear. She glanced at the blanket on the couch, knowing the object was still hidden underneath. The ranch, her life here, it was all tied to this secret, and she couldn't walk away from it now. She was in this whether she liked it or not. Ayanna stood still, her mind buzzing with the weight of what Mrs. Thompson had just revealed. The truth had shattered everything she thought she knew about her life on the ranch. The stone, the curse, the family secret, it was all too much to absorb in such a short time. She had never imagined that something so hidden, so ancient, could be tied to the ranch where she had spent so many years of her life. Her fingers still tingled from touching the stone, and she could feel its strange warmth lingering in her skin. It was as if it had chosen her, drawn her into something that was far beyond her understanding. Mrs. Thompson's words echoed in her mind, the warning about the curse, the power that the object held. Ayanna had heard stories growing up, tales of powerful objects passed down through generations, of curses and ancient rituals, but she had never believed them, not until now. She had always been an outsider here, even though she had worked on the ranch for years. She had always done her job, stayed quiet, and kept to herself. But now it felt like she had been pulled into something much larger than herself, something that had been hidden for generations, and now, it seemed, it was her responsibility to deal with it. Ayanna's hands shook as she looked down at the blanket, where the stone still lay hidden. She couldn't ignore it. She had already uncovered part of the secret, and there was no going back. But what could she do? What was she supposed to do with something so powerful, so dangerous? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden knock at the door. Ayanna's heart skipped a beat. She quickly turned toward the door, her pulse quickening. She had no idea who could be visiting, but the timing couldn't have been worse. She wasn't ready to face anyone. She didn't even know how to process what she had just learned, let alone explain it to someone else. She stood frozen for a moment, debating whether to answer it or pretend she wasn't there. But the knock came again, louder this time. Reluctantly, Ayanna walked to the door, her feet feeling heavier with each step. She opened it, expecting to see a ranch hand or one of the other workers. But to her surprise, it was Charlotte Thompson. Mrs. Thompson's daughter. Charlotte was a few years younger than Ayanna, a spirited and determined woman who had always been close to her mother. She had a sharp wit and a sharp tongue, but she also had a kindness that made her easy to talk to. Ayanna wasn't sure why Charlotte had come by, but she immediately knew that something was off. There was a look in Charlotte's eyes, a look that told Ayanna she wasn't here for a casual visit. "Ayanna," Charlotte said, her voice low. "I need to talk to you. It's important." Ayanna nodded, stepping aside to let Charlotte in. She didn't know what to expect, but her curiosity got the best of her. She closed the door behind her, her mind still reeling from the conversation with Mrs. Thompson. "I've heard some things," Charlotte continued, her voice quieter now, as though she didn't want anyone else to overhear. "I know what you found, and I know what it means." Ayanna's heart sank. How could Charlotte know? Had Mrs. Thompson already told her? Or had Charlotte somehow figured it out on her own? She tried to keep her expression neutral, but the truth was she felt like she was being pulled deeper into a world she didn't understand. "What are you talking about?" Ayanna asked, her voice betraying the fear that had begun to creep into her chest. Charlotte stepped closer, her face serious. "The box. The stone. It's not just a family heirloom. It's something much more dangerous. And you're right to be afraid." Ayanna felt the blood drain from her face. She had hoped for a brief moment that Mrs. Thompson's warning was just an old legend, something to frighten children. But now it was clear that the danger was real. "What do you mean?" Ayanna asked, her voice trembling slightly. "What's going to happen?" Charlotte's gaze softened and she took a deep breath. "It's a long story, but I'll tell you everything. I have to. The curse, it's not just a warning. It's a promise. A promise that will come true if the stone is disturbed." Ayanna swallowed hard. "But why? Why is it here? Why didn't you tell me?" Charlotte's face hardened. "Because I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to admit that the curse was real. But I can't ignore it anymore. I thought it was buried deep enough that no one would find it. But now it's been disturbed and we're all in danger." Ayanna felt a chill sweep through her. The weight of Charlotte's words hit her like a wave. She had thought that by uncovering the stone, she had only unlocked a mystery. But now she saw that it wasn't just about secrets and hidden history. It was about survival. The curse that had haunted the ranch for generations was real, and it was coming for them. "What can we do?" Ayanna asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Is there a way to stop it?" Charlotte took a step back, her expression grave. I don't know. My mother told me stories when I was younger. Stories about how the stone was kept hidden for a reason. She warned me never to touch it, never to even look at it. But I didn't listen. And now we have to face the consequences. Ayana's heart raced. What kind of consequences? Charlotte's eyes darkened. The stone, it's a key to something ancient. It was buried to keep its power locked away. But once it's disturbed, the curse begins. People start to disappear. Animals go missing. Bad things happen. And the longer it's out, the worse it gets. Ayana felt a lump form in her throat. She had never believed in curses. But now, standing in front of Charlotte, hearing the fear in her voice, she couldn't help but feel the weight of what had been unleashed. We have to do something, Ayana said, her voice steady but filled with determination. We can't just sit here and wait for it to get worse. Charlotte nodded. I agree, but we need to figure out what's next. We can't handle this alone. Ayana knew Charlotte was right. They needed help. But who could they turn to? Who could they trust with something so dangerous, something so powerful? I'll help you, Ayana said, her voice firm. We'll figure this out together. Charlotte's eyes softened and she gave a small nod. I'm glad you're with me, but we have to act quickly. We don't have much time. Ayana's mind raced with the possibilities. The curse, the stone, the danger, it was all so overwhelming. But in that moment, she knew that she couldn't turn back. Whatever had been set in motion, she was now a part of it, and she would do whatever it took to stop it. But even as she made this decision, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered a warning. There was more to this than they knew, and the worst was yet to come. Ayana and Charlotte sat together in the dimly lit room, the weight of the conversation still heavy in the air. It had been hours since Charlotte had shared her knowledge about the curse, and the more Ayana thought about it, the more it felt like a nightmare they couldn't wake up from. The ranch, once a place of routine and simplicity, now seemed like a ticking time bomb. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind that rattled the windows, felt like a reminder of the danger that was now breathing down their necks. Ayana had never considered herself a superstitious person. She had always prided herself on being practical, grounded in reality. But what had happened today, what she had uncovered, and what Charlotte had told her, shattered that worldview. The curse, the stone, and the power it held, it was all too real. And now it was a part of her life too. She could no longer ignore the strange energy that seemed to fill the air around her, and she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Do you think we can stop it? Ayana asked, her voice shaky despite the resolve she had tried to muster. I mean, what if it's too late? What if the curse has already started? Charlotte turned to face her, her expression filled with uncertainty. She looked just as scared as Ayana felt, but there was something else in her eyes. Something that hinted at a deep knowledge of the land, the history of the ranch, and perhaps even the curse itself. I don't know, Charlotte admitted, her voice low. My mother always said that once the stone was disturbed, there was no turning back. That's why it was kept hidden for so long. But now that it's out in the open, it's like everything's shifting. I don't think we can stop it by just putting it back. It's too powerful for that. Ayana felt a chill run through her. Then what do we do? Charlotte's eyes flickered with a mix of fear and determination. We find out what it really is. We have to learn everything about the stone, where it came from, what it's connected to, and why it's cursed. If we can understand it, maybe we can figure out how to break the curse. Ayana nodded, though her heart pounded in her chest. It seemed like an impossible task, but Charlotte was right. They needed answers. The longer they waited, the stronger the curse would become. They had to act, even if they had no idea what they were truly dealing with. The two women sat in silence for a moment, lost in their thoughts. The only sound was the distant hum of the ranch, the soft wind stirring the trees outside. Ayana's mind raced, turning over everything she had learned. There had to be more. There had to be something they were missing. Finally, Ayana spoke again. Charlotte, what exactly did your mother say about the stone? You said she warned you never to touch it. What else did she tell you? Charlotte hesitated, her gaze shifting toward the floor as if she were searching for the right words. She said that the stone was not just an artifact. It's a key to something older than any of us. She told me stories about its power, about the people who tried to use it in the past. Some say it's a relic from the Apache tribe, but others say it's much older. There were rumors about it being a weapon, something that could bring great destruction. but no one really knows for sure. Ayana leaned forward, listening intently. A weapon? What kind of weapon? Charlotte shook her head. I don't know. My mother never explained it fully. She was always afraid to talk about it. But I do know this. There's a connection between the stone and the land. It's tied to the history of the ranch, to the land we live on. If the curse is real, it's not just affecting us, it's affecting everything around us. The animals, the plants, the very earth beneath our feet. It's all connected. Ayana's mind was reeling. The stone wasn't just a cursed object. It was a key to something bigger. Something that affected the very land they lived on. But what was it unlocking? What power did it hold? I've seen strange things, Ayana continued, her voice trembling. Things I can't explain. The way the weather changes so suddenly. The animals that disappear. The way the ground feels different sometimes. It's like something is waking up. Something that's been asleep for a long time. Charlotte's eyes darkened. I know exactly what you mean. That's the curse. It's not just a force that harms people. It's a force that affects everything around it. The land itself feels it. It's as if the stone has the power to shift the very balance of nature. Ayana swallowed hard. So what do we do now? How do we stop it? Charlotte looked out the window, as if searching for the answer in the sprawling desert beyond. We need to go to the old cabin. It's where my family kept records of the stone. My mother said there were old journals, notes from people who tried to understand it before us. We might find something there, something that can help us, but it's dangerous. The cabin's been abandoned for years. It's deep in the desert and no one's gone there in ages. Ayana felt a shiver run down her spine. The thought of traveling to that abandoned cabin sent a wave of unease through her. But it was their only option. If they wanted to break the curse, they had to go to the source. They had to face whatever was waiting for them. Let's do it, Ayana said, her voice firm. We don't have any other choice. Charlotte nodded, her expression resolute. We leave at first light. But we need to be prepared. There's no telling what we'll find when we get there, Ayana agreed. She knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy. The desert was vast and unforgiving, and the cabin was miles away from the ranch. But the truth lay somewhere out there, in the heart of the desert, waiting for them to uncover it. The next morning, Ayana and Charlotte packed their supplies, making sure to bring everything they might need for the journey. Ayana felt a sense of purpose as she strapped on her pack, but also a deep fear. The desert was a place of mystery and danger, and it had a way of hiding its secrets, secrets that could change everything. As the sun began to rise, casting a warm glow over the landscape, Ayana and Charlotte set off, their steps echoing in the quiet morning. The ranch seemed far behind them now, and with each step they took, the world around them felt different. The air was thick with anticipation, and Ayana couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them, something ancient, something tied to the stone. The journey was long and difficult, but as they approached the cabin, Ayana's heart pounded in her chest. She could feel the weight of the stone, the curse, bearing down on her. They were close, and whatever lay ahead, they had to face it together. When they reached the cabin, it stood silent, shrouded in the dust of time. The door creaked open as Ayana stepped forward, her breath shallow, her mind racing. They had come this far, and now they would uncover the truth. But as they crossed the threshold, Ayana couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't just walking into an old building. They were walking into the heart of the curse itself.